My name's Andy Flannagan. If we haven't met before, I'm the Exec Director of Christians in Politics, and it is a privilege to be standing in front of people like yourself all over the country, saying for the Christians involved in politics that I represent from all the major parties, from the smaller parties and from no party, that for us it is kingdom before tribe, that is the thing that we shout from the rooftops, that actually our primary allegiance is to a higher king. And that's why we're involved, and that's why we're stuck in. And that's actually what creates the possibility that we can be sitting, as we were in a room just a few moments ago, praying together with folks from right across the political and theological spectrum. And it's a joy to be able to do that, especially in this time when things are so tribal. We think we've got an important message to bring. So thank you for coming this evening. It's wonderful to have you with us. I want to start right back at the start in Genesis chapter 1, if that's all right. And this is Genesis chapter 1. Where you have probably often heard these very famous words. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." That's Genesis 1, 26 to 28. Also in Genesis 2, verse 15 says, "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it." Now, if you've been around the church for any length of time, you've probably got a sense that we believe that we are stewards of God's good creation. And we go right back to those verses to say, right, okay, we have some responsibility for leadership in this realm. And we get that and we understand that. But what we often don't notice is when these verses happen. We understand that they exist, and to some extent they inspire us and drive us on and call us to responsibility and leadership in the world. But quite often we don't stop and think about where they come. And I just want to drop that thought for a moment with you. Because as you saw in that video, we are quite good as the church. In fact, we are hardwired, thankfully, for compassion. The amount of compassionate things that are springing up around the country, whether it's food banks, street pastors, working with excluded young people, whether it's counselling people who are in debt, there's an incredible amount of stuff going on. We are hardwired for compassion. That's a beautiful thing. We need that. It's a beautiful thing. We are hardwired to help. And actually now, gradually, we are also discovering that it's not enough just to do the charity thing, that we have to pursue justice. So as that video said, again, we need to go back to the Jericho Road to work out how to stop other people getting mugged. Or as Desmond Tutu put it, we need to not just be pulling the bodies out of the stream. We need to be going upstream to see who's pushing them in. So we've got that, and we understand that we serve and we see problems in the world, and we realise those problems don't just need a personal solution, they need a systemic solution. We need to not be just the paramedic of the UK for the next 50 years. We need to be not ignoring one of our roles as a church. In fact, we can embrace the pastoral role of the church in helping people hand to eye, face to face, because that gives us a real buzz, actually, to do it that way. But we can sometimes be ignoring the prophetic role of the church, which is more difficult, because that means taking on vested interests. That means making ourselves unpopular, because the people who help people are usually lauded as heroes. But the people who take on vested interests and say, actually, here are some of the reasons why so many people are struggling, those people don't tend to be as popular. That's not as easy. So we get that, and we've gone on this journey from charity to justice, and so we get into the mindset of helping to sort out, helping to fix some of the problems in the world. And so many of my friends and myself have got involved because we've seen those problems. But where do these verses, where does this call to leadership occur? It actually occurs before the fall, which is a crucial thing to grab hold of. Because for many people, politics is just a functional thing. In fact, people sometimes in some brands of theology would say that politics is a necessary evil because there is evil in the world. And that kind of fits with what we think about politics, because we look at it and we say, oh, it's dirty, it's corrupt. And so people get into the thinking that politics is just a necessary evil because there is evil in the world. But that's simply not true. It's simply not true. God called Adam and Eve into leadership and stewardship over his creation while it was still perfect. So this is a divine vocation. This is a call to leadership that predates any dysfunction, that predates any sin. This is not just about sorting out problems. This is not just about helping people who are struggling. This is actually a divine call to be serving, to be stepping into the role that we were always called to be imaging his good rule and reign, to be those kings and priests. And it's actually promised that we will do that forever. So it's not just about doing it now. All those scriptures about how, as a kingdom of priests, we will rule and reign with him forever. It's actually an apprenticeship for what we'll be doing through the whole of history and eternity. Even perfection needs managed. Some people are going, yes, that's true in our house. Yeah. So that was back at the start when perfection needed led and managed. And in the future, when all the new heavens, the new earth, the new creation, the beauty of that perfection that we will rest in for eternity and we will work in for eternity, even then we'll be ruling and reigning with him. So this is just an apprenticeship. This is not just functional. It's so easy for stuff to become just functional these days. I go to Christian conferences and you can basically see all the way along through the conference, it's mostly type A males who have spotted a problem in the world and who happen to run an organisation which helps to fix it. And that's not a bad thing. Some of those things are great and wonderful and important, but we can start getting into a functional mindset that our faith is only about sorting out the world, when it is so much broader, deeper than that, when it is a divine call to lead in public. It is great, and because we get involved with him, we obviously get involved in the mess and the pain of the world, because that's what he did, and that's how we follow him. But it's that relationship with him that leads it, and it's that glory, giving him glory, that leads it, rather than just a functional, hey, this is the best way to sort things out, even though that will happen along the way. So do you see why where and when these verses are is so, so important? It's a call. And sadly, when I see people get involved in politics, and this gentleman gave such a good illustration, if that's not your framing for getting involved in politics, you might not last very long. Because if you just have a functional, pragmatic call into politics, whenever it goes wrong and you can't do the things that you thought you were going to be able to do, you often give up. Or whenever you take a lot of flack from friends or family or from people on social media, you tend to give up. Or you actually start hiding your light under a bushel because you think, well, to pragmatically get that stuff done, I'm going to have to shut up about this thing. And so, again, we're starting to see it in the framing of being functional rather than seeing the big picture of what we're called to do in imaging our God. And that's challenging. And I could tell you so many stories of marriages that have come apart, of people that have slipped off the rails, who have come in with all the energy and all the passion. And I honestly believe a huge part of it is about identity. It's about why we do it. And that's why I wanted that to be a banner right across at the start of tonight, that theologically we need to know why we're called into this. And yes, I see people who have a specific call to specific issues and specific passions in specific areas. And that's a glorious, glorious thing. But we need to see the big picture. And we need to see that we are here in the midst of this broken but beautiful creation, being involved with him in the restoration and redemption of his creation. And that gives us our raison d'etre. That gives us our reason to be involved. And it gives us a reason to be praying and only doing what he calls us to, as opposed to just doing what's in front of our faces. Because that, if we just do what's in front of our faces, it leads to a lot of stress. And it leads to a lot of overwork. And the other thing I've seen with so many friends and myself in politics is that lives come apart because of that lack of healthy balance and lack of well-being. You know, during the expenses scandal, I wanted to be telling the other side of the story. Nobody can defend the whole the duck houses and the second homes in Southampton when you live in Luton. Nobody can defend that stuff. But the story I wanted to be telling at that time was how difficult it is to hold a life together, working in two different geographical locations with very little resource under 24-hour media scrutiny. I was thinking, I want these people better resourced rather than less well resourced. I don't want stressed out people making my laws. I don't want people who don't have time to spend time with their family making my laws. I want them to have more staff. And seeing that other side of the coin is so important, because if we step in and don't hold to our values, whether that's the time we spend with our families, whether it's the time we spend at the grassroots and community, and get lost in a world that's easy to get lost in, then again we lose our saltiness and we lose our effectiveness. And it's wonderful tonight. We'll be meeting some people who have got involved and who have seen the benefit of being part of a tight clan and community, to hold them to why they got involved in the first place. So it's our prayer that tonight you might just maybe hear that call to join in and to join with some other fellow travellers.